Hello, Exiles. I'm your professionally miserable host, Winkers, and I'm here to talk about a build that is near and dear to my heart. Corpseblaster. Maybe not the best name for it, but what else do you call it? You can't just call it Volatile Dead or Detonate Dead. You can't call it Poet's Pen because it doesn't use Poet's Pen. It's cast on cast. It's kind of the craziest thing that has been in the game for a while and really somehow keeps surviving, even as it gets hit indirectly with repeated nerfs. I'm here to talk about how I made it work in Crucible League and how you can enjoy it too if that's what you're after. So, what is a Corpseblaster? Well, you run around the map with a shield, repeatedly casting on Earth, and each time you cast it, there is a 50% chance you will trigger the Volatile Dead and Detonate Dead socketed into your helmet, using the Kitava's Thirst unique. This requires Unearth to cost 100 mana per cast, but Unearth has a base cast time of 0.2 seconds, so you can already shoot it off very quickly. Combine this with the Necromancer's corpse consumption mechanics, and you get a build that spins up to a very, very high inherent cast speed. And what this allows you to do is basically machine gun bosses down with corpse explosions and put a bunch of balls in their face. It's as funny as it sounds, and it's a lot of fun to play. I have some footage going right now to give you an idea of what it looks like. It is incredibly durable. In fact, as we move over to the POB here, the first thing you're going to see is that when you're generally mapping, you have an effective HP pool of 105,000. No, Molten Shell is not on. That's actually just against general mapping stuff. It goes down a little bit against bosses because effective HP is a little different when the enemies can hit harder, and that is where this build has slightly less effective overall HP. But generally speaking, I think POB is actually kind of missing the full effect, because with everything going on, we actually regenerate pretty much all the damage we take over 3 seconds. We're going to get more to that in a moment. Now, what happens if we turn on Molten Shell? Well, it goes up to 155,000. If we turn on Val Molten Shell, we have almost 200,000 effective HP to run around the map and act like we don't give a shit about anything with. It's a lot of tankiness, a lot of survivability on a build that plays fast, moves pretty quick, and generally blows up the screen with ease. That's why I play it. And hopefully that's why you'll try it. So, what makes it tick? Well, let's start with our Ascendancy. Essence Glutton. This is kind of the champion node of the game that really doesn't get enough credit. You can't get more mana regen anywhere in the game than from Essence Glutton. 4% of mana over 2 seconds when you consume a corpse is insane, and it's up 100% of the time for us. That's 2% mana regen per second flat. That is scaled by all of your percentage increased mana regeneration effects. Additionally, for nearby corpses, we get flat mana on top of that, up to 50 per second. It ends up being a lot. It also makes our ES more valuable, and we're kind of throwing a foot in every circle on this build and just getting more survivability hand over fist because of it. Next, we have Plaguebringer, kind of a transitory node, but a very important one. This causes enemies to deal less damage to us. It also makes us do more damage. Very powerful, and it gives us the AoE we need for Volatile Dead to feel good. Combine this with the 20% quality, and that's 50% AoE right off the bat. Corpse Pact. This is the all-star of the build. In addition to making enemies chilled and shocked constantly, which is in itself very powerful, that opens up hypothermia support, and it makes them take increased damage, Corpse Pact lets us scale cast speed for each corpse we've consumed recently. We consume corpses so damn fast, the game can't handle it. Currently, in-game, when I spin up, I get to about 13 casts per second of Unearth. That is a lot of corpses consumed. That's 6.5 triggers per second at 5 corpses consumed each trigger. That on its own is obscene. In fact, hold on, quick math. Yeah. Wow. That on its own is 32.5 corpses consumed per second, or 70% gas speed. We basically cap this out if we're able to just keep going. Now, unfortunately, we've lost some of our incredible mana recovery effects over the years. The caster mastery that would cause us to regain mana is gone. That really sucks. Luckily, Nexus gloves are still in the game. Nexus gloves make it so that there's a 30% chance when we pay a skill's cost to gain that much mana. This works for everything, for Unearth, for all the skills we're triggering, everything. It's really powerful, and it is now necessary. There's a lower tier version called Aetherwind Gauntlets, or gloves, which you can hook up, or which you can put on, and this will essentially take over your mana recovery needs early on, and allow you to switch to Kitava's Thirst while leveling and feel comfortable. When you do that, it actually probably feels better than how we used to level it, because we just used to not bother with it. Unfortunately, because we need these gloves, and they're a ritual base, you can't really league start this build anymore. Additionally, we have a mana mastery here that gives us 10% chance to recover 10% of mana when you use the skill. This is enough. There's nothing else to say. This is enough. It keeps us up, it keeps us going, and sometimes we have to stop, but as long as you have a mana flask, which, I mean, it's a mind over matter build, have a mana flask, you're going to feel really good. Additionally, we have Battle Rouse, and this mana mastery here, which gives us 20% of damage taken recouped as mana. More recoup. We also have life nodes for recoup. 50% from the tree, and then I believe here, another 11% from a ring. This gets us to 60%. When 40% of your damage taken goes to your mana pool, which is basically eternal and impossible to deplete unless you do it yourself with your own spellcasting, this basically results in 100% mana recoup because the damage is taken against... because the recoup amount is taken against all of the damage you take, even if the damage isn't applied to your life. That also makes our energy shield more valuable. Because of the way that works, 20% mana recoup is also basically enough to kind of recover through all the damage we take as well. They balance each other out, right? You can have spikes and whatnot, but all this together creates a character who kind of just regens through everything if nothing manages to, pop us with a big hit. This becomes even more exciting when you factor in that we achieve low life by using Petrified Blood, and Petrified Blood is even better with recoup. And because Mind Over Matter is such a great mitigation strategy for damage over time, we kind of cover that as well. It's possible that a strong bleed or poison will hurt you, but it won't get you low so quickly that you just suddenly die. You have to really not be paying attention for a while for that to happen. And I haven't actually died a single time since switching to low life. And I will run into some stupid stuff, let me tell you. Even without Molten Shell up. It's a fantastically durable build. It's great for mapping. Honestly, if I hadn't taken a break and kind of lost my momentum to play the game, I might have tried to take this one to 100 because it can do it. It can do it. It will not die if you don't do something that will get you killed. The best way to put it. So, how do we scale our damage? There's a couple things that go into this. They're very important and you want to get them out of the way quick. The most important thing is our helmet. Luckily, Kitava's Thirst is a cheap helmet. Buy a bunch. Do a 4-link. The most effective way to do this is to get 2 sockets, force them to be green, and then just add additional sockets, because you need 1 red one for fire penetration and 1 blue one for combustion. At least those are the supports that I run. I find they work the best because, yeah, you need penetration in the game right now. You just can't not have it. So you get that socket coloration, remember to quality it, and you throw a Valorb at it, and you try to get +2 to level of socketed AoE gems, or +2 to level of socketed fire gems. This is huge for your damage. Then you get a Tainted Blessing, which, thank goodness those were added to the game in Scourge League. And now you can enchant your Corrupted Helmet, and you don't have to use the Tainted Blessing until you find the enchant you want, so don't worry, you just need 1. Find Volatile Dead consumes up to 1 additional corpse, and this will make your corpse consumption insane. You will scale up so fast with cast speed, and you're just going to obliterate the mapping experience. The best part is, the more cast speed you have, the smoother it feels, and it already kind of feels smooth from the get-go. Now, before you get all of these things, you do not run low life, you run an Eternal Blessing with Determination. No Petrified Blood, you just run that. This keeps your mana pool giant, which you need early on, because you have to keep your Unearth mana cost over 100. And early on, you don't have the bulk mana to make this work. Once you have enough mana, you're free to switch. In this same vein, Forethought is a very important skill. This comes in and out of the build as our needs change. The goal will always be to keep our mana cost for Unearth as close to 100 as possible. Never forget this. Work for it as hard as you can. It will make things feel smoother. It's not hard to do. We have all of these different nodes around that increase or reduce the mana cost of spells, right? If you're too high, you can switch to the lower wheel and bring it down again. Generally speaking, it's easier to stay low once you go low life, which is another advantage of it. In fact, as you can see here, I have to have the increased mana cost of skills to really make this work in its current form, because my mana pool is now much smaller with Determination actually reserving mana. But because I only have half the actual effective HP pool, it is okay to reserve half my mana for the purposes of Mind Over Matter. It's kind of a double whammy situation that just results in 30% more spell damage, and honestly, Recoup might be more effective. I'm not entirely sure how it shakes out. I just know that I haven't died since I did it, and I actually feel tankier since the switch. As far as the POB is concerned, we have multiple trees. One for when you're getting Kitava's Thirst set up. This kind of tells you what you need to switch to it right away. We have a pre-low life tree for some kind of early to mid-game mapping. And then, of course, our final tree, which is a little different. You'll notice Elemental Overload goes away. This is not because we don't have it. It's because the best Crucible node we can get, I really don't care what else you do, the best one we can get is the Elemental Overload node here. This saves several points, and it lets us do a little bit more with the rest of the tree. We can get Undertaker easier. I actually anoint Undertaker early until I can get it this way by going low life and, pathing through Pain Attunement anyway. and then I anoint Battle Rouse. And Battle Rouse gives us that extra damage taken recouped as mana, and that might be another part of why the build feels so much tankier after switching. I'm just over 3 seconds getting back all of my stuff, pretty much. Except for maybe ES, but I mean, the only time I ever lose ES is like when a big bleed or ignite hits me, and it kind of acts as a buffer for that, which is really nice. And it's also great for like helping with your total effective HP against bosses and whatnot. I take on most things, and even though I don't have insanely high resistances or crazy spell suppression, I find that one-shots are pretty few and far between, which is a good feeling. You know, just don't stand in the big attacks that are obviously going to kill you. As far as gear is concerned, outside of the stuff I've already talked about, you want a shield with a lot of block. You want to get that number as high as possible. It's like max resistance. The more you have, the better it is. This one is a very good shield. Outside of the block, you want to get that +1 level of all skill gems, and I guess life. This could be a little better. Not much, I'll be honest. It could be a little better, though. If that mana were fire damage instead, the shield would be perfection. So you know what to look for. This was an expensive shield. I think I paid a divine for it, but it was good. So I didn't care. I was like, all right, that's the last shield I'm ever going to need. And yeah, I've got so many things to switch out before that. Additionally, you need to fix your stat requirements. I have a dexterity ring here with as much life as I can get on it, as well as the resistances I need for the build. Here I have my one ring with at least 10% of damage taken recouped as life. This gets us to the magic 60% number. You want that. I don't care how you get there, but rings tend to be the easiest way to get it done. Standard +1 level of all fire skill gems. Amulet for a little bit of a bonus. A +2 amulet would be insane. Just a better amulet in general is probably high on the list for me at this point. I don't need many other upgrades elsewhere. This is one of the more important things. Reduced effect of chill and shock on you is very important on the boots. Additionally, you can get some nice implicits from your Eldritch Searing Exarch stuff. The reason we go for this is because our Pantheon is actually Brine King, so with the reduced effect of chill there, we almost completely negate it, and then Garakan for almost complete negation of effective shock. And this is another thing that keeps the build moving smoothly and keeps us from getting one-shot. People tend to underestimate shock. Shock will kill you. It will. Taking all that extra damage is terrifying. Get rid of it. The body armor, though, is kind of the all-star of the build. It's what we got back in return for what was lost. As you can see, there's no life roll on this body armor, and you probably know where this is going, because we don't need it. We just went all in on armor and ES. We have a huge armor and ES pool because of it, when normally we shouldn't be able to, because, I mean, we're forced into running these gloves. Kitava's Thirst doesn't give that much armor, and then even our boots have to have energy shield on them, because we take this node. And this node functions because we keep a prefix open on our Nexus gloves to craft flat armor. This is awesome. This is really a huge part of our survivability. You can see our effective HP pool would drop by about 23% if we unallocated this node. It's a good node. Don't sleep on it. Additionally, we have 15% increased maximum life if there is no life modifiers on equipped body armor, which is why going all in on the armor ES is more viable than it was in the past. Lastly, the build does run a 6-link. Yeah, on top of everything that we do, with a 4-link in our gloves and a 4-link in our helmets doing the majority of our damage, you'll see it is actually Armageddon brand on the side here that's doing damage in the POB. This is because it's kind of impossible to calculate how much damage Volatile Dead and Detonate Dead are doing when they're being triggered. I can show you Unearth. Deals... It's showing here 100,000 DPS. This is actually multiplied by 5 if you get right on top of them, because Unearth is a targeted AoE, and you can overstack them. That's cool if you really want to like maximize the DPS, but it's very, very hard to properly calculate how much damage Volatile Dead is doing. It's saying 87k on the hit right here, and then you have to multiply that by, I believe it's 6.5 to get the damage, so a decent amount. And then on top of that, there's also the corpse explosion if you're detonating it right onto the enemy, and then there's also the numbers from Detonate Dead. There's a lot going on, and it's really kind of difficult for me to understand the full value of what the damage is. It's hard to know exactly what the damage is. I just know that the actual effect of the triggers going off is more than Armageddon brand, even though it looks like it might not be, because if I kill an enemy with just Armageddon brand, it's nowhere near the damage of if I kill an enemy without it. And Armageddon brand almost seems to do more in PoB, so make of that what you will. It's a lot of damage. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the range of 4 to 5 million with what I currently have, and there's room to grow still. It can get stronger. I don't know how much stronger, but I'm guessing quite a bit. Things like a +2 amulet, a better weapon, better shield. That's a little bit of a stretch, but it's there. And you can get better, you can get stuff going, especially if you got more mana regen suffixes on your jewelry to make things a little more comfortable in a bossing scenario. And also probably a shield that wasn't corrupted that you could actually go for mods on, and then just a better crucible tree on the weapon with more cast speed, because you see how important cast speed is for the build. I get up to about 13, maybe 13 and a half casts per second. The build keeps scaling until 20 casts per second. 20 casts per second is when you're going to reach a situation where additional casts per second kind of fall off in value, because that is the amount of casts per second you have to reach before statistically you're triggering 10 times a second, which is the helmet's cooldown rate, because you have a 50% chance to proc. Of course, I want to say there is a little bit of a soft cap at 10, because that's where you could theoretically go off. But yeah, so somewhere around 15, 16, 17 casts per second is going to be like the premium just blow everything up number, and I'm still not there. But with a strong more percent cast speed mod on your weapon, you might be able to get there. Lastly, I want to talk about the trigger weapon. Now, having flammability in a trigger and a wave of conviction in a trigger might not be a lot of people's favorite things, but you do need this weapon to be a trigger regardless. The reason for this is that we are triggering Bone Offering. Because we are constantly putting corpses down, Bone Offering is always up for longer than 8 seconds. And because it's always up for longer than 8 seconds, the next time it triggers, it'll be replacing an old one. You have constant bonus block and spell block from this. This is a huge part of what makes the build feel so good in mapping. You can see here, the only note I haven't talked about, Mistress of Sacrifice, giving us that increased duration. It's making the offering affect us. It's making us tanky. Very, very tanky. In fact, if I unallocate this node, our effective hit pool drops by 51%. Yeah. Don't sleep on it. Most important thing possibly when you're going into late maps is that you have that Eternal Lab and you have your trigger weapon set up. It's part of what makes gearing a little difficult as well. But again, I am very well geared. All that I have here is a +1 all skills gem with spell damage and some cast speed, which is pretty good. Definitely good enough. Could also be a lot better. Again, the build is in no way like totally optimized, but at this point it's starting to get expensive, and like I said, I had to stop playing for a little while, and it kind of wrecked my motivation. I'm thinking about maybe moving on to a little bit of Ruthless play later. I don't know. I might come back to it as well. I had fun recording, and that kind of like reignited a little something, who knows. But I did want to get this build guide out, this review of what I've been up to, just in case anyone else wanted to try it, because it's a really fun build. Running around fast, casting spells to trigger other spells is just a great experience in Path of Exile, and it doesn't exist anywhere else. This is it. This is the one cast on cast build that exists. And anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Have a good one, Exiles, and see you next league, I guess. That's a little grim. I don't think I'm quite done with Path of Exile yet. So, see you next time.